Previously on Read with Ronald. We bringing this one back out the vault too, because we got to talk about both of them together. I'm going to cut the people who said that Men Cry in the Dark was waiting to exhale for men some slack. I'm going to cut them some slack because I see it with the book. Let's remind y'all what our ratings on Men Cry in the Dark were. And I'm going to tell you the exact point. He got it too.
Y'all. This book is a 0. It's a 0 out of 5 for me. This book is a 0 out of 5 for me. And Ronald knows I wanted to like this book so bad. When he was like, it got a 2, I'm like, nah, it can't be that bad. It's not gonna be that bad. It's not.
So just to be clear, I gave Men Cry in the Dark a 2, and I gave Waiting to Exhale a 4.
I gave Men Cry in the Dark a 0. I can understand it. If you give it anything other than a 2, though, I'm judging you. But a 2, I understand. And then Waiting to Exhale is a 5, yeah.
So now we have reached that portion in the video where we talk about brother and sister. So y'all know that back in December, I read Men Cry in the Dark. And she laughing because she know. Did you enjoy Men Cry in the Dark?
I did. That was another book that I wanted to read. Actually worried my brother up about that book. I was like, go get the book, because I really wanted to read it. So, yes, I enjoyed it, but if you're coming from a standpoint of, trying to find connections with Waiting to Exhale, it's not the same. It's a whole other story book within itself.
I wasn't even trying to find connections. I just hated that book. I hated it.
Well, just give it to me. I'll take it to my collection.
No, that's my book. It's staying on my bookshelf. But I hated it, but it's staying on my bookshelf.
That doesn't make no sense.
What did you like about it?
So, I liked the storytelling parts. I did agree with my brother, though. If you're titling the book about that character, let that character tell the story. Don't be having his fiance tell the story and like that. It just don't make no sense. To me, my opinion, but it was a great book, but the perspectives, they did kind of get confusing. Yeah, I ain't too much care for that.
Mm-hmm. But she did agree with me that ending was terrible.
It was. Like, how you gonna get on the phone? Maybe I deserve to be anyway, like, what? That went nowhere.
So, Anna, do you think Men Cry in the Dark was Waiting to Exhale for men?
Interesting question. So, I would say no, but I would also say yeah. I would say yes because I watched my brother's video, his perspective on it. Him and Taté did a great job. So me reading it, I was trying to connect the characters and everything. And I found some connections, but overall it was not like Waiting to Exhale whatsoever. It just wasn't.
So then we get into the $1 million question. Taté, do you think that Men Cry in the Dark is Waiting to Exhale for men?
Y'all see my face. Hold on. Let me show you guys what I have to say.
Like, bring you down to earth for a sec. There's no way you're getting tickets for that show, but I love your enthusiasm.
Okay.
Y'all see that?
Not to bring you down to earth for a sec. There's no way you're getting tickets for that show, but I love your enthusiasm.
Okay.
Yeah. That right there. Because it's one of the most disrespectful things y'all have ever said. Y'all are going to jail. I'm calling the authorities. When I find out the people that keep comparing these books to this book, y'all are going to jail. I'm calling the authorities. I want y'all to know this. They were just throwing that stamp on anything because they said Friends and Lovers was Waiting to Exhale for men. They were just throwing that on anything. They said, yep, stamp. We want the book to sell, stamp. Yep, it's by a Black man. It's Waiting to Exhale for men. I'm calling the Black Panthers. Yes, I am. I'm calling them because y'all are disrespectful. Y'all are disrespectful.
You see, you know what? Y'all gonna have to call the authorities on me. Because with the book, I see the vision. I saw,
Ronald,
I see the vision. Now,
let me catch this on camera. Me get my phone. Say it one more time. Say it one more
y'all
time.
are gonna have to call the authorities on me because I see the vision a little bit. I see, if at least with the book, I see where people was going for with it's waiting to exhale for men. I see the vision a little bit, a little bit. I'm
Yeah,
explain
my
why.
friend about to go to jail. This is crazy.
I'm explain
My
why.
brother,
Because
after
when
he
I'm
do his
reading it,
crime, because you do the crime, you do this.
because when I'm reading it, I'm like, you know what? I can kind of see it because it's like I see the attempt to it. mm, how can I put this? Let me say it like this. Let me put it this way. Miss Terry McMillan, she got a 4 for a reason. Mr. Michael Baisden, he got a 2 for a reason. So the stories was very different, but I do see why people say it was waiting to exhale for men because waiting and here's how I can explain it. Waiting to exhale, we done talked about this book, and it's very clear that this lady right here with this very pretty picture, I done stared at this picture about 50, 11 times because she really looked really good in this picture. But this lady right here, she wrote a book about 4 Black women and targeted it at Black women, and Black women loved it because they could relate to it. I was your target audience, but I could not connect to your men because they barely was telling the story. I'm, you know what? Go watch the Men Cry in the Dark video for all of our thoughts on that. But yeah, so what I was saying was the reason Terry got this 4 and she succeeded is because she knew who her target audience was. She wrote her book to her target audience and she centered her target audience in the story. That's why her book is successful. That's why it got a movie. That's why it's beloved and remembered to this day. Now this book was also successful, but not in the way that Terry's was successful. It was successful because Michael got on that pavement. He hit that pavement and he was selling this book to everyone who would buy it because he, in his own words, said there was a void of literature for Black men written by Black men and he wanted to fill that void.
It's admirable. It's an admirable cause.
And so that's why he was successful because he knew how to market his book. Now, story wise, this man failed in every aspect, whereas Terry succeeded in every aspect. But I could see the vision. I could see the vision because they attempting to touch on similar things. And it's like and even Michael even like lifted the ages of the women for his men. Did you notice that the women and the men are the same ages?
I did not notice that, but I knew they were all around mid. I knew they were all around their mid-30s.
No, they
I
are
was gonna
literally the
say,
same age. Gloria and
I,
Ben are 38. Savannah, Bernie, Tony, and Derek, they're all 36, and Mark and Robin are 32.
and the babies, of course. um, Same vibe. I think that I can see it in the sense that of the same way we said Man Cry in the Dark in Friends and Lovers, what it was supposed to be. What it was supposed to be. So I see the comparison of like 4 friends, right? It's based in their friendship, but there's also a big chunk of it being romantic and romance as a part of it. Even though the basis is about these 4 friends, I see that comparison. But where we mess up and where I gets disrespectful is exactly what you said. The execution. These are tears. This is pain. This is I was your white woman for 11 years. Okay? This is I had a heart attack. This is my daddy is dying. A man possibly gave me an incurable disease and got a woman pregnant and wouldn't marry me. Okay, I'm the oldest, and I gotta take care of my mother. And a man that I thought I really liked, I gotta cut him off because this man married selling me a dream. This is problems. These characters are not perfect, but likable because they're human. We understand they're well-rounded. Even the men in these stories, the men in these stories do not matter. But we know enough about Troy to make it make sense. We know enough about the relationship, and Savannah has made enough of a relationship with Robin to where if Savannah called Robin to lean on her, it makes sense. Like if we fast forward and we're in this story and Savannah was like what Bernie said, and Savannah was like, I'm gonna give Robin a baby shower, it would make sense. Versus Terry having those girls as her maid of honor, it doesn't make sense. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it all goes together. Terry actually, this is what happens when you care. This is what happens when you care about art. And this speaks to something that we were talking about. When people think that communication in art is so easy, it is not. It is not easy. It is you have to study. Yes, it is an art form, but it is also a curriculum. It's a discipline. It's not just an art form by itself. There is science. There are rules. There are ways. You get what I'm saying? To make all of these things happen. And you could tell that Terry did her due diligence. You can tell with the movie that she did her due diligence. You can tell by the actors that she picked that she was not playing, or whoever did the production was not playing. You could tell by the actors themselves that they were not playing when it came to this book. Versus other people, I feel like Men Cry in the Dark is what happens when people say, oh, how hard can it be? When people think it's so easy. And it's not to get down on anybody, because I really be trying to give Michael a little bit of grace, because I'm not the best at writing books. You feel me? At least he gave it a shot. I understand that. But also, I want people to start putting respect on people's names. Y'all don't understand how disrespectful this is to this woman. If you understood how much work that she put in, how much blood, sweat, and tears she probably put in to create this and to build this legacy that's surrounded around this book, and for people to be able to get popularity on their book based off of her name, is why the whole reason that you read Men Cry in the Dark is because y'all told me it was gonna be this. That's how you got your whole publicity, and you didn't do your due diligence to really get to know people. Like you could tell, I feel like Terry has so many conversations. I feel like she could probably tell you who in her life or what conversations were had that pulled from this. She could probably tell you which characters she relates to and which things were personal. Like you can tell, even her style of writing, even I can even tell you that although I don't like the writing and how Stella got her groove back, what did you say? It's the story, and also it's a stylistic choice. I didn't like how Stella got her groove back was written, but the story was complete. The storytelling was there, okay? It was just the writing. So it was already a little bit disrespectful. I'm like, you ain't have to play Terry like that, because the book wasn't like she had a story, but reading this book, I'm calling the authorities. I'm calling the authorities. That's so disrespect. And I could see if it was a labor of love, if it was a clear story about, the pain of a man, but that was just
foolishness.
That was a failed attempt of trying to copy. It was a failed attempt of trying to copy. And not only that, it was no real. They start off Waiting to Exhale. The movie and the book starts off with pain. And then we go through the process of healing from that pain. And we go through making mistakes, and nobody's perfect. And all of the friends, we know all of the friends.
Mm-hmm.
When certain things happen, we like, oh, okay. Like one of the biggest things in the book that did not make sense or made you, the one thing that probably made you question it was Marvin calling that boy, saying that that boy was his son. Because it was like, why you throwing that out there? Okay, that's your wife. Then we could assume that this is your son. That was one of the most off things that Terry did. That book right there. This let me know that I know the rules and I decided to break it. I know the rules, but I decided to break it. The other one is I don't know the rules at all, and I'm just doing what I want. And there's nothing wrong with doing what you want. I just think that you can tell. Y'all give her respect.
No, because
I apologize and give her respect because this book deserves so many accolades. Don't disrespect.
Because the women, the 4 women in this book, Bernadine, Gloria, Robin, Savannah, I think what really got this from me is that they had stuff going on outside of their relationships. They had actual things going on. They had lives. They even made it a point in the book to say, I have a life outside of romance. We just talk about men all the time because that's what we get on, and that's what we all have in common. We don't have no men. But they had lives. They had things going on. They had their own things going on outside of their romances. These 4. What did they have going on? What lives? What lives? What struggle?
Y'all see what that say? Suddenly single. Terry start off the book with the pain.
And you know what? What does this say? What does that say? Happily single.
Come on now. What's that called?
That's called ripping somebody off. You even, and then you know what? Now that I look at it, this man even hold that book up again.
Come on now.
The same font style.
Come on now.
Talking about some happily single. Where was Derek happily single at?
We might copy, but we could never duplicate. That's what we tried. That's what we tried to do, and he was not happily single.
He really did, because Waiting to Exhale starts off with Savannah. What's her job career? She works in public relations. She's communication. She wants to go into producing for TV. Men Cry in the Dark. We start with Derek. What does Derek do? He run a magazine. Communications. That man was trying to make Derek Savannah the man version, but it failed because he failed to capture what made Savannah special.
Listen, guys. Look, now she was trying to remember how he said it. It seemed as if he told her in the same tone he used to say, I'm going to the store. Do you want something? Or is anything good on HBO? But then again, Bernadine really couldn't be sure because she felt stoned, as if she smoked a good joint, but she hadn't. Still, something was pushing her shoulders down, while what felt like helium was escaping inside of her head. She couldn't move. She was sinking and floating, felt heavy then light, and it scared her. Do y'all hear this? Starting off. What is Derek talking about starting off?
You can't even compare the men to the women because it's obvious who this man was trying. It's obvious Savannah was supposed to be Derek, Bernie was supposed to be Tony, Ben was supposed to be Gloria, and Mark was supposed to be Robin. It's obvious, but you can't even compare Bernie and Tony because Tony don't show up with his own chapter until page 211. Bernadine was chapter 2.
Tony is the most, and Tony is the only, listen, if it wasn't for Tony, I bet you he probably wouldn't even get that too. Tony's the only character, and he didn't even get time to shine. Tony should have been the main character because Tony was the one with how Bernadine wasn't the main character, but you see how we got a whole bunch of Bernadine because she was one of the people with the main pain. You see how when we watched the movie, she kept coming up because she was with the main pain. So that's like making Savannah the main character. Why would you make Savannah the main character of the story, knowing that Savannah has pain, she has certain things going on, but her pain is not as intense. it would make more sense for Tony. Why? Come on now. Especially if Tony's gonna be Bernadine. That's what happens when you copy, though. That's what happened when you see success. This is the blueprint. But let me tell you, like the great Whitney Houston said, there will never be another Aretha. Okay? There will never be another Gladys. There will never be another Dion. There will never be another Sissy. And there will never be another Whitney Houston. Right is right and wrong is wrong. This is a classic, period. Okay? So of course we love it, but it's a classic, period. I'm putting the baddest ones on the floor. I'm not putting on for you just because you black. Now, don't get me wrong, but not nobody on the outside talk about him. He did what he could.
And he did, because it was successful. It was a success selling wise. It just fell flat story wise.
Y'all be thinking people be taking so long to write books, or y'all see artists and they're not posting, photographers aren't posting every day, they're not posting in a couple of months, because y'all see actors, people put in that work. Like, you have to live life, you have to experience things to be able. Y'all talk about artists, oh, it takes them 2 years or it takes them a year to put out an album. You have to experience life, you have to do your due diligence, you have to know and you have to balance being able to create a story, right? What she did, likable characters that can also sell, that can also transcend the page and go to other parts. And that's stuff that takes time. And also, I'm sticking to myself with this too, but anybody who is an inspired artist or author or anything, it's also to be gentle with yourself as well, because that was Michael's first go at his at nonfiction. At fiction, right? So that's his first go at fiction. There's no telling if he could progress. There's no telling if he took the criticism. There's no telling if he actually did the work to get better. Because you're not gonna be this on the first try. Because I can guarantee you, her first book, this is not her first book, and her first book have gotten published.
That first book, I can tell you about that first book because I read about it. That first book, they was not trying to publish it. They published it, and then they wasn't trying to promote it. So Terry was like, y'all not gonna play me like I'm just some rinky-dink black lady author. She called all the black bookstores, and that's how her book got big.
And I know that's right, because we gotta put on for, come on now. But even with that said, you see how you putting in the work to do it, putting in the foot. Even though Michael did what he did, but he did exactly what Derek did, got in them streets and gave out those books. That's what you do to put on for your work. And it's okay if it don't come out good the first time. Just take the criticism and get better, because everybody got to get better, okay? I'm not saying it to beat down anybody. We're not trying to beat down nobody, say that people not working hard. But at the same time, because you're doing the best you can. But at the same time, it is important for us to do that due diligence and do that research, okay, guys? Because this is what happens when you do your research. And another thing is what happens when you just copy off of somebody else.
See, putting on for each other is how we got this. That's how we got this disappointment. But that's not to say we shouldn't be putting on for each other. But what I am saying is, it's okay to want to put on and want to support other black people, because that's the whole reason we read Men Cry in the Dark. Because we were under the impression that Men Cry in the Dark was the male equivalent to Waiting to Exhale. And I wanted to showcase a story about black men that I was under the impression it was going to be on level with Waiting to Exhale. In my opinion, Men Cry in the Dark is not on level with Waiting to Exhale. It's not the best male equivalent of the story. And that's because Waiting to Exhale centered black women. It told the story from the perspective of black women, and it marketed and targeted itself to black women. Men Cry in the Dark marketed itself to black men, but in my opinion, it didn't really target itself at black men. It didn't really center black men like that, and it didn't really tell the story from the perspectives of black men. It told the stories from the perspective of black men and black women, and the stories were supposed to be about the black men, but in my opinion, it wasn't as impactful as it should have been. It should have been about Derek and his control issues in relationships, and how he is struggling to come to terms with the fact that he has control control issues in relationships. He wants the relationship to go his way, whereas Angela's like, no, this is a partnership. That's what his storyline should have been about. Him coming to terms with the fact that he has control issues and being in a relationship with a woman who requires him to see the relationship as a partnership and not just that I'm your woman and I do what you say and we go your way. Tony's story should have been about him reconciling his past actions with what he wants to do in his present. He wants to be a good father, and his storyline should have been about him trying to find a balance, trying to find peace within the dysfunction that's going on around him. There was an attempt at that. It wasn't a very good attempt. There was no growth with Tony. He started off as a good man. He ended as a good man. We barely got any story from Tony, and that's what I mean by the story didn't really center the black men and tell the story from their perspectives. Because if that was the case, why did we not get Tony's perspective until well over halfway through the book? Why is most of Tony's story being told through the eyes of his fiance? I don't care about Tracy's perspective like that. She's not who I'm reading this book for. Ben and Mark, their storylines should have been about Ben. He likes dating younger women, and Mark likes dating non-black women. There was room to discuss those issues in a way that would have been like a good way to examine why black men choose to do things like that. But that's not what we got. The way that their stories were explored were not impactful. They weren't impactful because we didn't really get anything about the men. And that's the other thing. The men did not have lives outside of their romances. Like, they had successful businesses, but they were already successful. Honestly, the friendship was really the only thing I found to be a little bit realistic, in the sense that, yes, they're a friend group, but some of them have closer relationships with the others than they do with some of the others. That was the only thing I found realistic. It wasn't as impactful as Waiting to Exhale. It just didn't go as deep. And I feel like a big part of the reason for that, I can't speak to what Michael's been through in his life and stuff like that, because I don't know. But what I'm saying is, like Taté said, with Terry, you could tell that some of them stories were like personal experiences or things she's probably been through and experienced, or she knows people who's been through those things and experienced them. Michael's story is like the situations were realistic, but in my opinion, the execution was not good. I feel like Waiting to Exhale was kind of like an exploration of what it was like to be a black woman at that time, because it touched on many issues that black women were experiencing at that time. And even now, I feel like Men Cry in the Dark really didn't do that. They didn't touch on, the issues that black men experience. All of the issues the men experienced were issues they brought on themselves. There was no like outside issues that they were dealing with, nothing outside of themselves affecting them and impacting them. It was all stuff that they brought on themselves, and it all just reconnected back to their romances. And it's like, there's more to life than just romance. I feel like there wasn't enough exploration of them as men. That's basically what I was trying to say, is that it's okay to want to put on for your people. It's okay to want to support black people and want to be supportive of their endeavors and what they are doing. And it's okay if you liked it and enjoyed it and you genuinely enjoyed it. I did not like the story, but just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you won't like it. You like it, I love it. It's okay to want to put on for your people. It's okay to want to support black people and their endeavors, because we as black people, we know how hard it is out here when it comes to our stuff, especially our creative endeavors. At the same time, we also need to call out stuff that's not at its best, stuff that is not where it could be. Like me and Taté have been saying, we know what Men Cry in the Dark should have been. I know what he was going for. I know what he was trying to do. The execution was just not good. And that's the disappointment. You know what the mark was, but the mark was missed, because I feel like this was an opportunity to like really do exploration into the minds of black men and why they do the things they do, and really just tell a story that black men can relate to. Because like I said in the Men Cry in the Dark video, I couldn't relate to none of the black men because their decisions didn't make sense to me. The story just needed more time to be written, a little bit more research to cover the topics it was trying to cover. It felt like it was kind of like a rough draft, like it wasn't finished cooking, if that makes sense. It needed more time in the oven. It wasn't finished cooking. It needed more time to cook. It needed more time in the oven. It needed a little bit more time to get the seasoning right, get everything together. Like, I feel like it was put out too early. It needed more time. It needed more research. It needed more experience. The experiences of the black men were not relatable to me. They might be relatable to other black men, but even then, it was like surface level. It didn't really dig deep in the same way that Waiting to Exhale digs deep with its subject material. And I feel like that's the main issue with the book. It's really just a surface level book that took heavy inspiration from Waiting to Exhale, but it failed to capture what made Waiting to Exhale such a special story. So basically, this is the big sister and this is the little brother trying to ride big sister's coattails. That's why I say they go together.
You know what?
So because they go together, they will go together here on my bookshelf.
Okay, now I gotta call the authorities on you. I gotta call them again. Because We were there until then. Oh, do you want me to get the book that we're reading next?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, because I don't have it on me.
Okay. Hold on. Let me get y'all the book. So, and let me tell y'all something. Because Ronald really out of control.
I'm thinking what we actually gonna read when it's my turn next time. We gonna read this. We gonna read Their Eyes Are Watching God. Because I'm gonna go on a mini rant while Tati get this book.
Oh,
It
I
was
got it,
this
but yeah.
girl. It was this girl that decided to be very disrespectful and decided to say that Miss Zora Neale Hurston could not write.
Come on now. Come on now.
I've already
Come
read
on
this
now.
book. I've already read this book, but I'm willing to read it again because it was just that good.
So I told Ronald we was gonna do Omar Tyree. That man, now y'all see how he made me read Wait to Exhale, but he gonna tell me he not reading it, right?
I'm not.
Because he swore up and down I was gonna make him read this book, which is For the Love of Money. This is the sequel to Fly Girl, because I've read the sequel to Fly Girl and I've read the third book, right? So he's
I'm not reading the sequels to Fly Girl. I want to believe that Tracy had a good ending at the end of that first book. I'm not reading them other two.
She had a good ending in the book. You know what? She had a good ending, especially for the Love of Money ended really good. But what I was actually gonna have us read was this by Omar Tyree called Leslie. But he said no, Omar Tyree. He just knew that I was gonna have him read Fly Girl, so he didn't even want to hear it. Oh, I actually have my laptop on top of it, guys. It's called The Itch. Let me slide my laptop down. It's called The Itch. It is by this lady right here, if you can see it. This is the book we're reading next. I've read her book Good Hair, and then I got this. This is the book we're reading, and I love this. I just love the cover ink, but I just love it. I know I'm a cover person.
We reading that book because there's a second cover of that book where they done took my girl's chair. And I just need to know, why did y'all take my girl's chair? Why y'all got her doing a wall sit?
I really could have sent this book because I have 2 copies of this. Because my first copy, it got messed up. But actually, I think I like my first copy better than this. My first copy is a little bit bigger.
So yeah, so the month of April, we'll be reading The Itch by Benilde Little. In the month of May, we'll be reading Their Eyes Are Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. And we'll also be watching the movie based on this book, because it does have a movie starring Halle Berry.
Hopefully it's free this time. Starring Halle Berry. Okay, y'all. I had so much fun filming this. It took a while to get this. But I had so much fun filming this. This reminded me of like just how much I love this series. I love this whole series because it brings me into, Ronald's world of reading and writing, and it gets me more creative. And you see the producer artist combo. It just works. It works.
It works. All right, guys, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like and a comment, and go subscribe to my channel, and go subscribe to Tati's channel, because y'all will learn new stuff, like the word décolletage. Y'all will learn how to do your makeup. Y'all will learn how to do your hair. Okay? It's spelled TATESOMNE. And if you got an issue with it, take it up with Tati, not me, because Tati's the one that did it, not her mama. It was her. Okay? I learned that a few days ago. But until then, we'll see y'all next time. So make sure y'all subscribe to our channels, and we'll see y'all next time.
And I want to say, if you Bernadine gives me Torrance vibes. If y'all know who Torrance is, he's my favorite character from a little book, from this book called Creek.
Hold on.
Yes, if you have not read Creek, you guys need to read it.